Hi everyone, this is Ricky Spencer and welcome to another of our Sociology of Media Voices series. Today we're going to deep dive everything into caring and the care culture, and we're going to look at specifically an organisation who is leading the way to really understand the importance of this work. And we begin our journey today with two wonderful people. Well, there's three, but we've got Naomi and Terri, who are the Care Engagement Advisors and Carer Gateway, a national service funded by the Australian Government to support unpaid carers in Victoria. Merri Health coordinate the statewide delivery of the service with 6 other organisations. And as well, most importantly, joining us is Kylie, who's going to give us a snapshot and deep dive into what it is to receive care, to provide care, and to really understand what people who are working in this space and volunteering in this space need to understand to really become partners so that we can all have a good quality of life. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And let's start with the most important question. Who is a carer and why are they important?
So our carer is someone who provides care and support to a family member, a friend, maybe even a neighbour, and they have a disability, a medical condition, and mental illness, or someone who's frail due to age. So we refer to those people with those conditions as care recipients, and the people who support them are the carers. So they can be any age, they can provide any type of care. They can provide up to 24 hours a day and full-time support. Sometimes it might also just be for a few hours a week. They also can be someone supporting someone who doesn't actually live with them. So, for example, you could be an unpaid carer to a family member who might be in an aged care facility. 11% of Australians are carers, so that's 2.65 million people, and a third of those are actually living with their own disability. 1 in 11 Australian carers are under the age of 25. Now, they're not always the primary carer, but they're definitely integral to the overall well-being of the care recipient. And they're often providing support that other people their age wouldn't be providing.
Hmm. So what are the challenges faced by carers?
One of the biggest challenges that we see in many of the people in a caring role is that they don't actually first and foremost identify as being a carer. So they're not always aware of the services and supports that are actually available to them. It's important to recognise as well that carers aren't just statistics, and that they're a diverse cross-section of our community. And we're really fortunate here at Merri Health Carer Gateway that we get to actually work with a vast array of carers in our advisory group, of which Kylie is one of those today.
So some of the main challenges that are faced by carers primarily are their health and well-being. So the caring role can be incredibly time-consuming as well as emotionally and physically draining. Carers often don't have the time or the energy to prioritise their own health. So nearly 2 in 3 carers have a chronic health condition compared to 1 in 3 Australians overall. They also experience social isolation, and there's an impact on their relationships. So caring can reduce the time that's available for them to spend quality time with friends and family and people and the person they care for as well. They often miss out on social opportunities associated with work, recreation, leisure activities, all because of their caring responsibilities.
They also experience a lot of challenges from a financial perspective, and they're often experiencing financial hardship. We often see that carers incur greater cost of living expenses, and they often have a reduced income because their caring role often means that they're unable to work in a paid capacity as most other Australians do. It often sees them as well having to find extra money for a variety of other things, including healthcare costs, increased heating and cooling costs, laundry, medicines, disability aids, and transport, of course. And of course, we've got Kylie here today, who is a member of our carer advisory group and who is in a caring role herself. Kylie lives in and works in the Eastern Metro part of Melbourne. And she's a mother to a young adult son, Darcy, who is living with cerebral palsy, as well as some other chronic medical conditions and subsequent mental health issues. Kylie also works as a family carer peer support worker for Child and Youth Hope at Monash Health. So Kylie, maybe you could give us some reflections yourself on the challenges that you faced in your caring role.
Yeah, it's been a big journey. Like, my son is 18 now, so it's been going for quite some time. I'd say probably the biggest impact is the isolation, and isolation in not just from relationships and social activities and work, but also within services and trying to be heard and navigating the system. It's been extremely challenging at times. And I think too that the carers, how it impacts the carers mentally and emotionally is not taken into account, because a lot of the, traumatic experience that the care recipient is going through, the carer is experiencing those things as well as trying to hold everything together. So it can be very, very, very difficult, and not being able to share that with other people as well, because it's just something that they don't understand or haven't experienced.
I was going to ask you, Kylie, the role that you do, it seems as though a lot of investment of your time goes to that. What are some of the challenges that you have faced from your friends and other people when you try and explain what your every day looks like?
Initially, it was people trying to sort of relate to it in their own experiences. But then it kind of just, your friendships and even your relationships with your family, it kind of drops off a little bit. Like, you don't get invited to as many things because you usually don't go, or, you don't get included in a lot of stuff. With work, it has been challenging over the years, particularly in those transition times for myself, with my son, from starting primary school to going to a special school to now he's in the adult world as well. Big changes, and a lot of employers don't give that flexibility, particularly when you have to sort of drop everything at any moment to go and care for them, or have to stay home with them. Working in the role that I'm working in now, there is a lot of flexibility with that, because I am a family care peer worker. But yeah, in the past, not so much at all.
And one of the other little takeaways from that, Kylie, I'd love to hear that you can tell our audience, is what advice would you give to people who may have a friend like yourself? What would the sort of things that you would look for that would really support you having a friend that would understand, that can do for you?
Firstly, it's just listening and not trying to make it better, and not trying to go, oh, it'll be okay, you'll be right. Just listening and validating what you're saying. And for myself, everybody's different, but for myself, I'm very, very staunchly find it hard to accept help. So, dropping a casserole around, or, just doing some things for the person is helpful, and alerting them to services like Carer Gateway if they don't know about it. That's another good thing. But just being there and being supportive is really good.
Thank you so much for sharing that really insightful input. Now, something that you've just raised, I really now want to go explore a bit more deeper. Why has the government implemented the Carer Gateway service?
Yeah, so about several years ago, the government took a very extensive 4-year consultation process with carers and the sector, and they found that the best way to support carers was to help them early on in their caring role. So through a range of tailored supports and services, carers can be supported to manage their daily challenges, reduce stress, plan for the future, and ultimately improve their well-being.
And in April 2020, the Carer Gateway service was launched across Australia, and it's been providing Australians with a variety of different services. And some of these include in-person and online peer support groups, tailored support packages, which help with accessing planned respite, transport services, and a whole heap of other things. In-person and on the phone counselling, of course, as well. That includes Zoom or meetings like this. After COVID, we had to be a bit more adaptable. In-person and online self-guided coaching, online skill courses to support carers with their wellbeing, and also as well understanding their legal responsibilities relating to their caring role. And of course, also access to emergency respite services. So that's to ensure that the care recipient is able to be looked after if something suddenly happened to the carer and they were unable to provide the care that they typically would. And kind of just to explain as well, as we mentioned earlier, in Victoria here, the Carer Gateway is run by Merri Health in support with 7 other health services, and they deliver it on the ground, depending on the local government area where the carer lives. So once you register with the Gateway here in Victoria, you then get allocated to one of our other teams based on the area where you live.
I just wanted to follow up with that. So we have sometimes a lot of people in regional and rural spaces. Can people who live out, say, in the outskirts of a rural region access the Carer Gateway to see if they can get any supports?
Yeah, definitely. So it's available to everyone across the state. But as with many health services and supports in areas, things don't come as quickly. So emergency respite, for example, is a big one, where emergency respite might actually take up to 72 hours rather than an immediate respite option. So the supports are available, and I think that's one of the benefits of the service working with other health organisations, is that those health organisations across the state know their area the best and their people the best and the services that are in those areas the best, so that when we do actually have carers registered with the service, they are getting a tailored support service rather than someone in the city trying to explain what services might be available 4.5 hours away.
And I was reading an interesting paper on your site saying about the hidden and hardly reached carers. Who are they, and why do we refer to them as hidden?
So as we kind of touched on a little bit earlier, not every carer resonates with the term carer. And often people tend to sort of see their caring role as just part of a responsibility that comes with their role as a partner, as a family member, as a child. And often as well, that means that they're not actively looking out for services that are there to support carers because they don't actually see themselves that way. We also have found through lots of conversation with carers and kind of anecdotally through our interactions that a lot of carers also hold a lot of shame around the role of being a carer or even reaching out and asking for help. And we find this to particularly be quite prevalent in certain community cohorts, particularly those from culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities, and also those that belong to the LGBTIQA+ community. In the sector, that's why we use the word hidden, because they're not people that are actively out there referring to themselves as carers or looking for the supports. But we do also recognise that the same community members are also those that encounter challenges accessing the health service and the health sector in general.
I was going to add to that too. Sometimes, we forget about older people. And I know that with the services that you provide in the Carer Gateway, it does support people who may have an older parent or an older partner. And I could only speak from my own experience that I really found it very useful and supportive. So for those who are listening, any age, it's a great space to go and have a look at to see what possible supports you can be tapped into, or then referred to a service that can really tailor to your needs. And one of these sort of flows through, I'm thinking now, what can these people and health professionals do to raise awareness for the needs of carers and be more aware of the positionality of carers and those caring?
Yeah, so I think using the term carer and validating the challenging experience of that is really important, and that will start to open the door for people to know that they can access services that they do exist and that there's services specifically for carers. And I think having conversations with them and really creating space for them is really important. I think health professionals, we would encourage them to reflect on just how much support carers provide, and reframe that as a caring role so that they can be eligible for services rather than just the role of parent or sibling or friend or family member.
It's over to you, Kylie. I'd really love to hear your reflections on that question about what can people around the community and other health professionals do to really support, to raise the awareness of what carers' needs are and what they really should be more aware of.
Well, firstly, I think that they need to be carers need to be validated, and they need to be reassured that it's okay that they get assistance, that they deserve to get some help because they've got so much that they have on their plate. I also think too, going back to the shame of the care, that it's really important that that part of it is validated too, that they're doing a great job and it's not that they're doing a bad job, that they need to get this help. And I think if the professionals or services are able to do like a warm handover to Carer Gateway or do referrals like that, rather than just giving them a brochure or giving them the number and say, I'll call these people. I've had a lot of people that I've worked with and within my network that have been given details of Carer Gateway, and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, I'll do it. I'll do it at some point." So having the professionals to actually go, "Look, I'll make the phone call for you." That's really, really important. Carer Gateway have been working with the Carer Advisory Group over the last 18 months or so, for carers like myself, have been giving input as to what the carers need when they're ringing Carer Gateway. And we've worked on, the phone intake at Carer Gateway, being able to go, okay, well, this person is overwhelmed. How can I help them, work through what they need? And that's been fantastic too. So that's an ongoing process, but it's going really, really well. So if the professionals can help initially to have a full understanding of Carer Gateway, do a little referral, that would make life so much easier for carers.
So who is eligible to use the service?
Yeah, so it's eligible for unpaid carers. We touched on who they are before, the definition of an unpaid carer, but it's independent of any other government services. So you're still eligible if you have an NDIS package or if you're linked in with My Aged Care or other social service payments, including the carer allowance. It's also not means tested, and it's also not dependent upon citizenship requirements. So permanent residents and refugees would be eligible. The service is available to the whole family involved in caregiving. So this also includes siblings and younger people. We call people under the age of 25 young carers, and they don't have to be the primary carer either to be eligible for the service. So we do still acknowledge their contribution to looking after the care recipient, and they might be what we call a secondary carer.
That's wonderful. I was just going to ask you now, everyone's so excited, thinking, how do I get onto this? So you mentioned before there's a website, and so is that the main way that people can access, or is there also a contact number that people can ring?
Yeah, so there's the Carer Gateway website, which is the best place to jump on to start with. There's a lot of information on there. And then there's also the Carer Gateway phone number directly to our intake team, which we'll link in with the information here. There are also translating and interpreting services available. And for service providers, there's also an e-referral document online. So as Kylie was talking about earlier, doing that warm handover, there's a space for service providers and health professionals to actually fill out that e-referral form to hand over to Carer Gateway. You just need the carer's consent to be able to do this.
And I want to hear about what your living experiences as a carer and about why these services are important for your life and the life of the person that you're caring for?
Carers like myself often put themselves last, and it needs to be understood that we need to be as physically and emotionally well to be able to care for their care recipient. I often say that, you know, it's the oxygen mask analogy. Like you're told to put the oxygen mask on yourself first before the kids on the plane, if there's anything happening, because you need to have the oxygen to be able to do that. And it's kind of like that. And I think it's really difficult too that as a carer, you're juggling so much, you're so overwhelmed, you're trying to organize appointments and medical things and, you know, care and respite and equipment, and it's overwhelming. You're hitting brick walls all the time. So the thought of, you know, trying to navigate a system to try and get some support for yourself, it's just, you can't fathom it. So having something like Carer Gateway that enables an easy way to get some support, it's really good. I think it's hard to with NDIS and with aged care packages and things like that people think, well, I'm getting all this support, but it's actually not the carers that are getting the support, you know. So getting in touch with Carer Gateway and getting some respite or cleaning or just some coaching to be able to advocate for your care recipient properly is definitely worthwhile.
Well, this has been a really wonderful and insightful and deep dive into the Carer Gateway. And for anyone who's listening out there who's a researcher or PhD student or early research scholar, wanting to find out the importance of the care community and really reaching out to people like Kylie with living experience is so important and vital to your research. And I hope one of the key takeaways that people can take is that to reach out to spaces like the Carer Gateway, who can then put you into contact with the care advisory groups, who then can perhaps really be your best point of call when you're developing your research, to really position that the living experience of someone caring and being cared for are really taken into account. And any support you can do, please reach out. The Carer Gateway is a wonderful resource for community organisations, First Nations communities, those from the LGBTIQ community, everybody. And that's what I love about the Carer Gateway. If you're a newly arrived person, a refugee, there's someone there to help and listen. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, Kylie, for spending some time and sharing your time, and for the lovely two Carer Gateway, Naomi and Terri, for spending some time with Voices Sociology of Media today.